What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane going back and forth, the greatest fighters ever according to Dana White, UFC London news, and much more. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel to see more videos just like this. Now let's get into it. Francis Ngannou says he's done with the Jon Jones fight and shoots down any chance of Bones' fight if he wins. Francis Ngannou is turning the page on any potential Jon Jones fight that may have been in his future. The heavyweight champion, who is preparing for a title unification bout against Ciryl Gane at UFC 270 this weekend, is no longer interested in the Jones fight if he wins on Saturday. Ngannou was asked this exact question during the UFC 270 press conference, which you should check out by the way, and he was very straightforward with his response.
No, I'm done with that fight. I've been waiting that fight for so long. After Stipe, it's supposed to be Jon Jones, and that never happened. I don't know why, so I'll move on.
Ngannou was linked to a potential fight against Bones after he won the heavyweight title against Stipe Miocic last year. Bones had vacated his light heavyweight title in 2020 to move up in weight and potentially challenge for the title straight away. But negotiations went south when both were asking for a lot of money for this fight, and the UFC eventually moved on and created an interim title fight between Ciryl Gane and Derek Lewis last August, which Gane won and is now culminating into this weekend's title unification fight. It's unclear what the UFC will do with Jones, seeing that he's had his share of legal troubles and has been outspoken about getting paid more by the UFC. Ngannou, meanwhile, is entering the final fight of his current UFC deal, and if he wins, it would kick in the Champions Clause for more fights, but he had stated he wanted to negotiate specific terms. What do you think about Ngannou shooting down the possibility of a Jon Jones fight? And also, do you think if the stars align that the UFC would push to actually put this fight together? Dana White reveals his personal list of the 4 greatest UFC fighters ever. UFC President Dana White has seen it all in combat sports, from Conor McGregor throwing a dolly, to Khabib's demolition of everyone he's faced, to Julianna Pena's unforgettable win over Amanda Nunes. There's never a boring moment in the fight world. But when asked about his personal picks of who the greatest 4 UFC fighters are, White didn't disappoint with his picks. There have been a few thousand fighters who have fought for the world's greatest promotion throughout their history, and while there has been a certain percentage that climb the mountain and become champions, some stick out for being a cut above the rest. So when he was asked by Kevin Aioli of Yahoo Sports who White had in his Mount Rushmore of the greatest UFC fighters ever, this is what the boss man had to say.
We're very aligned. I picked Jon Jones. I picked Kamaru Usman GSP, and Anderson Silva.
The Jon Jones pick isn't any surprise, as White has consistently and long said he's perhaps the greatest fighter of all time, full stop. He's praised Jones for his physical prowess, technical skills, ability to win no matter what in the cage, and just his incredibly impressive run as a light heavyweight. Anderson Silva is also not a surprising pick. In fact, if you ask any MMA fan, most would probably say both Silva and Jones are pretty much consensus all-time greats. The same can also be said of Georges St-Pierre. The French-Canadian has bounced back from adversity in losing earlier in his career and had a fantastically long reign as champion, carrying himself as such inside and outside of the octagon. Now, Usman's name may turn a few people's heads, but don't forget that White stated after the second Colby Covington fight that he thought Usman was the greatest welterweight in the history of the UFC, putting him ahead of GSP in that regard. One of the big things that GSP has over Usman in that sense would be his division record of 9 straight title defenses, where Usman is currently at 5. Do you agree with White's list here? And if not, who do you consider to be the 4 greatest UFC fighters in history? Let us know in the comments below. Julianna Pena's reaction to Amanda Nunes leaving American Top Team. After news of Amanda Nunes switching teams hit the online world, Julianna Pena was asked about it in her first interview since that news broke. Pena, who beat Nunes in a shocking upset at UFC 269 this past December by a submission, was asked about Nunes moving to another camp. And this is what she had to say.
Yeah, what a zoo, huh? Best of luck. You know, I just hope everything goes according to her plans and that we can, get this fight book. That's all I care about.
Pretty easy and simple answer there from Pena, who really is looking forward to rematching Nunes and solidifying her stance as UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. What do you make of Nunes leaving ATT to start her own thing? And what about Pena's response here? Don't forget to take a second and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest fight news. Booked. Alexander Volkov versus Tom Aspinall to headline UFC London card in March that will also include Paddy Pimblett. The UFC is announcing their slate of scheduled fights for the upcoming UFC London card, set to take place on March 19th. So far, we learned that former Bellator heavyweight champion Alexander Volkov will be taking on Tom Aspinall in the show's main event. Aspinall, a Manchester native, will be fighting in his home country for the first time as a UFC fighter. He's currently on a 7-fight win streak, 4 of them in the UFC, all of them finishes. He submitted Andrei Arlovsky last February and beat Sergey Spivak by TKO in September, so he's on quite a bit of a run. Volkov, meanwhile, recently defeated Marcin Tybura at UFC 267 this past October via decision, his first win since losing to Ciryl Gane in June. He has wins over Alistair Overeem, Walt Harris, and Fabricio Verdum. The UFC London card in March is set for the O2 Arena and is set to also feature Liverpool's own Paddy Pimblett. This news caused a bit of a stir online. UFC President Dana White originally announced this news on the Dave Portnoy show on Barstool Sports that Paddy would be fighting Jared Gordon on March 19th, but managers for both fighters claimed it wasn't true online. Multiple outlets are now saying that Paddy will actually be fighting Kazula Vargas, a 12-4 fighter who picked up his first UFC win last April against Zhu Rong at UFC 261. Other fights on the card include Jake Hadley versus Alan Nascimento, Luana Carolina against Molly McCann, and Cody Durden versus Mohamed Mokaev, among other fights. What do you think about the main event for UFC London between Volkov and Aspinall? Francis Ngannou, Ciryl Gane go at it over what actually happened in their sparring sessions. It's the sparring session that everyone has been talking about, and we don't even have video of it. About a month ago, footage surfaced of Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane sparring while at the MMA Factory in Paris just a few years ago. Then, this week, Ngannou let it be known that he had accidentally knocked out Gane in a different session with a high left kick, admitting that he wasn't proud of it, but it did occur a few years ago. Now, during the UFC 270 press conference this week, just days before they're set to fight against one another for the undisputed heavyweight belt, Ngannou and Gane got into a little back and forth about what actually transpired then. That was actually quite amusing and interesting to watch. It happened right at the start of the press conference, and Gane was refuting Ngannou's description of what happened, saying that he went to the ground because he was hurt, not because he was knocked out. This is what transpired.
You went to the floor, Cyril. Oh, you don't remember? You went on the floor or not?
I was on the floor.
Oh, you don't remember?
Oh,
he was knocked out probably because he doesn't remember.
No, this is not the truth. Honestly, you know me already. With Francis, we did some sparring, and it was a really great sparring from Francis. And he did a beautiful left kick. And the problem with Francis is just you don't like to spar. Technical sparring, you like to make power, and I told you a little bit a few times before. So you give me the left kick, you hurt me. You see, I'm honest with you, but you don't knock me down.
The two go back and forth for a few minutes before reporters finally got their chance to ask questions. While the two were one-time teammates, they're now preparing to solidly beat the hell out of each other for 25 minutes during the UFC 270 main event this weekend. And many are hoping it does not go the full 25 minutes. Either way, what do you think about Ngannou and Gane talking about their sparring session? And let us know your prediction for this fight on Saturday. Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos just like this. See you next time.